Hey guys, Evan Ork here, back in our video. Today we're going to be doing a review on the Bandai Showa Gamera figure. So there are a lot of Bandai Showa Gamera figures, so yeah, you might be confused since they've made many Bandai figures of the Showa Gamera design, but I guess the most I can differentiate this from all the other ones is that this is probably the most vintage, as you can clearly see, and we're going to be talking about that in this review. However, long story short, this is one of my last purchases, not the last purchase, but one of my last purchases at G-Fest Day 2. So when it comes to the pros about this guy, my favorite thing about it is the detail. First things first, detail on Gamera, this figure in particular, is very accurate to the original Gamera design. I love the scales that we have going all down to his shelves. You could really feel it, makes kind of a nice texture. I also like these linear square formations made on the front of his body. Of course, that's also accurate to the design. We saw that with the other Bandai Showa Gamera figure, but that's more of a newer one. We also have nice wrinkles, kind of like, on his hands here by the claws, just to show kind of how much of a reptilian kind of kaiju he is, as well as these wrinkles across his head. I think the head detail or face detail is well done. Of course, with the teeth, it was pretty bland. I think they could have done a better job with that. But no, I thought it was very nice. Also, these spines that go all back down to his neck into the shell. So yeah, very nice job on the detail. Let's get into the next thing I like about this figure. So the next thing I like about this figure is the articulation. The articulation on this figure is way better than average. Both that and the detail are way better than average. And this is the case with older Bandai figures. Older Bandai figures tend to do better with articulation. I don't know why the newer Bandai figures are lacking in that regard. It should be the other way around. But this doesn't have 4 joints of articulation, which is the minimum. It has 6. So first off, we have the head, which moves, both arms, which move, both legs, and the tail. So yeah, 6 joints of articulation for a figure that, again, completely reasonable. That's how it should be. But in any case, let's get into the cons of this figure. So this figure does have 2 major cons and a fairly big nitpick, but in the end it's still a nitpick. So for the first 2 major cons, we're going to get that out of the way. It is the paint job. The paint job is the biggest issue. I, of course, did not mention that in the main review, and this is a very vintage figure. This is going back to my point earlier in the review. First things first, the paint job on the back here is just awful. It's supposed to be a silver color, which really wasn't how Gamera was supposed to even look like as far as the shell is concerned, but at least that's where they were going, and it was kind of this silver color is rotting away to show the natural green, which should have been the color anyway for the rest of the figure. But of course, it's a sluggish green. It's not a booming color. Nothing about this figure is booming. Closest you could say are the eyes here, but there's no booming red or yellow or anything that's a more warmer color. It's just more of a sluggish color. So I get nothing to be done about that. But, I mean, the shell is just, they're not discreet at all about how this paint is just, deteriorating. They also have deteriorating paint on the fangs. I don't know why they couldn't just coat, if they even did at all, the rest of this yellow like the teeth. Instead, only the front part, which I guess is the most important part, is still yellow, but not the back. I mean, these things are still obvious. And there are paint scuffs on the front of the claws here for both his legs and his hands. In fact, on his hands, they completely lost their gold paint in some of them. Like here with that claw or like that claw. Next big con about this figure is the stiffness of the articulation. So I do applaud the articulation for the amount of joints it has, but it doesn't change the fact that for it being such a vintage figure, I don't understand why a lot of the joints are stiff. Head is the most stiff joint of all of them, I feel. But no, the arms and legs, fairly stiff. Tail is probably the least stiff of all of them, but head is easily the most stiff and really takes away from a lot of the figure. Next big con is the position itself that the figure is in. So a lot of my friends that I talked to after G-Fest kind of made fun of me for buying this just because had they had the hands go in a more normal position, this probably would have been a much more liked figure. I can already bet that the reason why a lot of Godzilla fans don't have this is because of the fact that Gamera, almost unless breathing fire, never has his hands in this position. I understand that Bandai figures, much like the Shin Godzilla Atomic Breath version, they sometimes make Bandai figures of the design where it maybe is doing a certain position. It's not always just the plain natural pose the figure is in. And I respect that, but this version in particular, this pose in particular, I don't think looks necessarily good. Again, only for if you're having the figure breathe fire. This is the only position Gamera would be in otherwise, but of course that's not the position he's in all the time, so I don't know why they did this, position for the figure. Last con, and this is the nitpickiest of them all. I did say there was only one nitpick, but I just spotted another one during this review, which I didn't even realize before. Gamera's missing a finger there. I don't know, it definitely looks like it broke off, but if it did, it's a clean snap because it's a very smooth breakage here. But I definitely know that it's broken because the other hand does not have this issue. So minor nitpick there. It's, not easily noticeable, so I won't give it that much of an issue, but I do think it's, fair to say it takes away from the rating. So in general, I'd be rating this figure as 7.3 out of 10. Given the fact that it's vintage, but yet it wasn't very popular, you certainly can find this figure for decent prices. And that being said, I would recommend it just because it's over 6.5. So would recommend this figure. Of course, not the best Gamera figure out there, that goes without saying. And if you're gonna get it vintage, which is how they are normally sold nowadays, definitely expect there to be some bad paint jobs. Like paint job, expect it to be the biggest issue of them all when buying a figure like this. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this review. Like, comment, subscribe. See you guys later, and bye-bye.